Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Street Tips here, and what I have here is the mixed black powders that I've treated in sulfuric acid. I boiled them for about an hour in sulfuric acid. I've got this rose colored precipitate here. It formed around the inside of the beaker, and what I'm going to do is I've got a little beaker down here. I'm going to add some water to it. Now what I'll do is I'll reach down into this container that's got my platinum stuff in it, get a little bit of this solution up into a pipette and add it to the beaker. Okay, here I have some 10% ammonia from the grocery store. What I'm going to do is reach down in here and get a little bit of it into a pipette. Got it labeled ammonia. Now we're going to add the ammonia to this beaker. And the goal of that sulfuric acid boil was to pull copper. We're going to see if we're getting copper in here now. If I add this ammonia and we get a blue color, that's a good indication that we're pulling copper out of that solution. There it is. I can see the blue color. Let me add a little bit more of the ammonia. Boom. So we did pull some copper out of here, which is what I was trying to do. But if you notice, something went into solution in there. I'm not quite sure what that is. Okay, rhodium is completely foreign to me. I've never worked with it. I don't know how to test to see if we've got rhodium. I've got a little plastic spatula here. What I'm going to do is reach in here and try to get some of this stuff scraped off the inside wall of the beaker here. If I can do that. Doesn't seem to want to cooperate. Alright, I've got a little bit of it on the edge of this piece of plastic here. I'm going to try to wipe it on this paper. You see that? Just a little bit of trace of the material there. Alright, I snipped this off with a pair of scissors. Let me get in here. See if I can get a decent quantity of this material on the edge of this piece of plastic. Now I'm going to try to wipe it on this piece of paper towel. There's a little bit we can work with. I've got some stannous chloride here. I don't know if this is a valid test for rhodium or not. There you can see the material. It's got a reddish color to it. Of course, copper has a red color also. What we're going to do now, let me get a little bit of this stannous on this and see what happens. Here we go. We're going to put some stannous chloride on here. See what happens. Alright, it's something. Some kind of precious metal. It's got a green color to it. After adding the stannous chloride, there's some black in there too. But I have no clue how to interpret this result, since I know nothing. You can see the stannous test there has turned a vivid olive green color. Not sure what that is. I don't know how to proceed here at all. I'm completely out of my element. I don't know what's in this solution. I don't know how to interpret the Stannis results, so if there's anyone out there that's looking at this that can that knows, leave some comments in the comment section there. I've let this sit for a couple days now, but you can see that test has turned a rose color in it, so that kind of tells me we've got some rhodium in that precipitate around the ring of the beaker. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this out of the way. What we'll do is I'm going to add a little bit of water to this beaker. Draw up some of the solution in a pipette. Add it to the water. And I want to put a drop of our solution into this spot plate over here. Add a few drops of water to our spot plate with our sample in it. And now I'm going to add some stannous chloride. And there you see we've got something in solution there. I see a dark green color as well as a red color in our sample with the stannous chloride. Based on this test right here, looks like we've got palladium and rhodium in solution. Red for rhodium, and the green I believe is palladium. Let me dilute this solution down a little bit better. Now I've got some dimethylgloxine dissolved in a little bit of water. What we'll do is add some of this to our sample here. If we get a yellow precipitate, that means we've got palladium in our solution here. Alrighty, this test here with the DMG, you can see I've got some precipitate forming in there. And what that tells me is that we've got palladium in our solution. So the sulfuric acid boil, put some palladium in solution. You can tell that by looking at this green color down here. And the pink rose colored solution, or the rose color, comes from rhodium. I've got a little bit of ferrous sulfate here. We're going to add that to one of the cavities here in our spot plate. Now what we'll do is add some water to this, to the ferrous sulfate. And now what we'll do is I've got a little bit of our solution left in this pipette. I'm going to try to drop a drop of this down in here and see if we got any gold in solution. If we've got gold, we'll see a brown cloud form. Wow. Got something. Well, apparently it looks like sulfuric acid, boiling sulfuric acid. I don't know if that's gold or not. It doesn't look like a brown cloud. It looks black. But based on this test, it looked like we pulled a little gold out of that solution over here with sulfuric acid. Based on this test, we pulled palladium and rhodium with a little bit of boiling sulfuric acid. And this confirms there's a yellow precipitate that formed in here when we added the dimethylgloxine. So, learned something new. Boiling sulfuric acid not only pulls copper and rhodium, but it pulls palladium and gold, looks like, too. Let me add a drop of stannous to this, just see what happens. I get something forming in there, see that? Some kind of precipitate forming. Now what we'll do is pull this solution off of our solids into a clean beaker. I'm just going to cover this up. I've got it labeled sulfuric acid with rhodium and palladium. Just move this out of the way. And here's what's left down in our beaker. Now what we'll do now is add a little bit of distilled water to this beaker, and I'm going to add some sulfuric acid to it to form a dilute sulfuric acid solution. Pour it in slow because this will heat the water up. Try to stir this up a little bit now. Creates a lot of heat. Now we're going to use some of the dilute sulfuric acid to rinse the material off in here. Alright, let's see if we can get this stuff off of our metal now. You gotta remember here, I'm making this up as I go. Some kind of weird precipitate forming in there, probably because I've used water. Just gonna rinse all this black material off now with some water. See if we can get it cleaned up. Turn a nice mint green color. I've been rinsing this over and over, trying to get the black powders down here cleaned up. If you look at this, this is our rinse water that we poured off. If you hit it with stannous, we're getting a little bit of a color change. That's looking like a rose color there a little bit. So we've got some rhodium that's followed the rinse water into this beaker. I weighed a clean empty beaker and wrote the weight on the side of the beaker here. So now what we'll do is we'll transfer our black solids into this beaker carefully. Now what we'll do is pour off this rinse liquid here carefully. Now what we'll do is dry this black powder off in here on some low heat so we can get a weight on it before we proceed. We've allowed this to dry completely. Let's take it down off the heat now. Let this cool off a little bit. We'll start from here. It's been allowed to cool completely. Here's our black powder in the bottom of the beaker. I'm going to throw it on a scale now. And we've got 275.0. So what we'll do is we'll write that right on the beaker. 275.0. That means we've got 8. 14 minus 6 is 8. 8.8 grams of material in our beaker. Put this up on a hot plate now. I'm going to add a little stir bar here. Cover it up. I'm adding some hydrochloric acid. About 100 milliliters or so. We're going to turn the stir bar on. Start stirring. Add a little bit of heat. Now we'll add some nitric acid. It's about 3 milliliters there. Just going to add it right on in. And start dissolving the black material. This has been on the heat now for about 45 minutes. Turn everything off. And we'll move the solution down off this now. And let it cool down. And we'll get set up to filter our solution. It's been allowed to cool completely. I'm going to use some hydrochloric acid to dampen the filter. Now we're going to filter our solution. I don't see any solids on the bottom, but we're going to filter it just in case there's any kind of junk in here. We did get a little stuff, trash, filtered out of the solution there. So now what we'll do is move this out of the way. Now we're going to Add our filtered solution to this beaker. This beaker's been washed and rinsed thoroughly, so it's nice and clean. I'm going to reach down in here with a glass rod and get a little of our solution. Put it on this piece of paper. Now let's do a stannous test. See what we got here. I see green and I see orange. There's definitely platinum in there. So we got platinum and palladium, it looks like, in our solution. Check for the presence of gold with some ferrous sulfate again here, because I think we might have a little bit of gold in here. Add some water. Now we'll get a drop of our solution and add it to the ferrous sulfate and see what we got. I don't see a whole lot of reaction there for gold. Alrighty, I've always wanted to try this. I've got some platinum group metals, and I think there's a little bit of gold in here. Should be from the stock pot. So I'm going to put this up. We're going to get this to boil. Now what we're going to do is add a little bit of distilled water to a clean beaker. Oxalic acid. Gonna add a spoon of this to the water. Alrighty, let's put this up on the heater over here and start boiling this liquid. I'm gonna filter the oxalic acid before we adjust the pH on it. I've got a little filter paper down here. I'm just going to get any crud or dirt that might be in here out of this solution. Alrighty, we've got all that pulled through the filter. Now what we'll do is add our oxalic acid solution back to this beaker and get it back up on the heat so we can get it boiling. I've got a little 10% ammonia here. We're going to add some of this to our oxalic acid solution. I'm going to try to adjust the pH up to around 5. Let me give this a swirl. And I'm going to reach down in here with a pH test strip and see what we got going on. That's a pH of about, I'd say about 3. So we need to add a little bit more ammonia. Let's recheck this now. Alright, that's looking better. It's about 4. pH of 4 now. A little bit more ammonia. Should get us on spot. Let's see what we got in here now. Oh, that's looking real good right there. That's between a 4 and a 5. Okay, we've got both solutions boiling now. I've always wanted to try this. I've tried it before, but it failed because I used too much oxalic acid. So now what we're going to do is try to pour our boiling oxalic acid, just a little bit of it, not a whole bunch, just a little bit here, into our boiling platinum group metals solution. And I think that should do it. And then we're going to go ahead and boil this now and let this cook. See if we can get the gold out of there. Just got done adding the oxalic acid to our platinum group metals. If you look, you can see a little bit of stuff floating on the top there. Thinking that might be the gold. So hopefully this experiment will be a success and we'll be able to pull some gold out of there with the oxalic acid and leave the platinum group metals behind in solution. I don't want to overdo it here. And last time I tried this, I added way too much oxalic acid. So let's go ahead. Just going to try it with just a touch more of our oxalic acid in here. Just a little bit. That should do it. If I'm not mistaken, I think I'm seeing some gold on the bottom of our beaker. Hot dog. That looks like gold. Alright, I'm glad I did this. I thought about not doing it and just going for the platinum, but now I'm glad I put that oxalic acid in there to get the gold out of there first. This has been on boiling now for about a half an hour. You can see we got gold down on the bottom of our beaker. I'm going to pull this down now and let this cool off. Allow this to cool off a little bit. I've got a specially prepared filter in here that rides up the edges of the funnel. So now what we're going to try to do is get our gold out of this solution into this filter. This should give us a decent separation of the platinum group metals from the gold. What in the world do we have here? Is that our gold? Or is that something else, man? I can't tell. It's very unusual looking. God's coming out in that filter in there, man. That is pretty cool. It don't look like gold, actually. It's like some kind of platinum salt. Wow. I thought this was going to be our gold. Gonna wrap this up. Melt up a little gold button. But now, looking at this stuff, it does not look like gold at all. Yeah, I don't know what this is. It does not look like gold to me. Could be wrong. Here we go. We're gonna test this stuff in here. Let's see if we've got gold in this filter or not. I don't think it is. Put it down here in this beaker. I'm gonna dump in a little hydrochloric acid. Oh yeah, that's some kind of platinum salt in there. Huh. Ain't that strange? Let's put it up here. Add a little heat. Alrighty, I'm going to add a little bit of nitric acid here. About 1 ml. Not much. Let's get that in here with a piece of filter paper. And let's do a test on this and see exactly what this substance is. It's bright orange like platinum. And that's exactly what we have. That orange stain on that piece of filter paper is platinum. So what I thought was gold was actually some platinum salt that precipitated out. We dissolved it in aqua reagent, did that stannous test. It was a bright orange platinum test with stannous. I think we're going to call it here for part 3. I've got the platinum salt in this beaker. I used oxalic acid in this solution to try to pull the gold. And instead of pulling gold, I got platinum salt precipitate. So we've got this solution now to deal with. Not quite sure what's in there. This is the sulfuric acid solution that's got some rhodium and palladium in it. Not quite sure what to do with this. Alright, I'm tired now. I'm gonna wrap this up. We're gonna conclude here part 3 of Stockpot 4 Platinum Refining video. Thanks for watching.